Well,
drink.
like apple cider vinegar is very acidic, actually helps with digestion. Okay, actually helps with digestion. So usually the foods that are acid aren't a problem. It's the foods that create an acid environment when they get in there, like sugars. Okay, sugars, a lot of wheats, grains, because they're mainly sugar, they're predominantly sugar, they create an acid type environment once they get in your system. Okay, so your blood becomes more acidic. Now, this is part of the 98%. There's 2% that doesn't change every year. What's the 2% that doesn't change? Any guesses?
Your brain.
It's your nerve system. And you don't get new nerve cells. There's no replacements for the nerve system, right? And I shouldn't say you don't get new nerve cells. You can get some new nerve cells, but most of them are connectors. They're not replacements. None of them are replacements. The nerve cells that you're born with, the nerve cells you're going to die with. You're not going to develop a replacement for the nerve that goes from your low back down to your toe, right? It's the same one ever since you were born, right? Now it grew and it got longer, but it's not replaced. It's the same one you've had your whole life. And it's the same one you'll have till you're done, right? Till God calls you home. So is it kind of important to take care of the nerve cells?
Absolutely. You can't restore them.
Yeah, you're not going to get it anyway, right? They can heal. They have the ability to heal, but they're very slow healers. And the reason they're slow healers is because you don't get new ones.
Right.
They'd be fast healers if you just got a new one, right? Well, let's just heal it up real quick because we got to produce a new one next week. So we need you back up and working, right? Or we'll just kill you and we'll produce another one, right? So, but the nervous system doesn't work the same way. Okay? So if you kill nerve cells with marijuana, not a good idea, right? You're not going to get any nerve cells to replace it, right?
So marijuana kills nerve cells.
Yeah, that's what I'm told. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I don't study drugs.
Yeah.
But that's what I've heard, right? Marijuana kills brain cells. There's probably lots of other things that kill brain cells too.
What about some of the other drugs?
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of other drugs that kill brain cells too. It's not the only one. I'm not trying to pick on that one, but yeah, there's plenty of drugs that kill brain cells. Now, and if those are the ones that are, you know, recreational drugs that have an impact, just imagine how strong some of these drugs that are prescription have an impact that we don't know about, right? Because we're not studying those. We're worried about the recreational ones. Right? We need to be worried about all of them, right? We need to know what we're putting in our body. Basically, give me an ingredient list and let me know what these ingredients do.
Right.
That's pretty much what it should be every time we go in and get a drug, right? So health, we can say, is a 100% expression of innate intelligence. If innate intelligence has complete autonomy and authority, we can have health, right? Now, is any of us in this situation, or will we be in this life? No. Okay. All right. Death would be a 0% expression of innate intelligence. Basically, the spirit's left the body, okay? And so now it's a pile of dirt, right? Now, we're at neither end of this. We're somewhere in the middle, right? Based on stress. Stress puts it in, you know, this is another thing. I meant you to say there was no stress in the garden, right?
Yeah, right.
You just walk around and eat, and you commune with God. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now we got stress. Ever since we left the garden, we got stress. So stress puts us somewhere in the middle of the spectrum here, right? So depending on how much stress we have, we kind of get bogged down this direction. If we can find a way to deal with stress and help get around it and adapt to it, we can get closer up to this direction, right? So we're going to talk about 3 different types of stress that we can categorize into. There's emotional stress, okay? It could be studying from a test, could be studying, or not studying, but could be trying to work out the finances, doing the budget, right? Could be relationship difficulties, right? Can't get along with our spouse or our loved ones. Could be road rage, right? Very innocuous, kind of sneaks in on you. You know, the guy cuts you off, why'd you cut me off, right? But then it builds up, you know, because it wasn't just that guy, then the next guy does it too. What's going on? Could be the death of a loved one, right? Every one of those has a different type of impact on us, and some of us are more impacted by those emotional stresses than others. Right? There's also chemical stress, okay? It could come in the form of the foods that we talked about earlier, right? A lot of people are just eating out every meal, right? Well, you know what? There's a lot of drugs in those foods that make you keep coming back for more, all right? Right? Factories spewing out stuff into the sky, right? Some of those chemicals getting into our environment. Could be from the cars, right? LA's got clouds because of car pollution. Right? And it could be drugs. We've talked about that already too. Right? And sometimes the drugs get in the water. I don't know if y'all know, people flush drugs, their excess drugs down the toilet, and it gets in the water supply. So just maybe throw it in the backyard or something. No. I think there's a specific repository. Take it back to your doctor or take it somewhere where they can deal with it effectively. Right? They can recycle the drugs and give them to somebody else. There's physical stress, which is the ones that are easier noticed, right? We know when something physical happened to us. Go to a car accident, all right? Yeah, we know that happened, right? Falling off the tube over, tube behind the boat. Maybe somebody took a fast turn. Trampolines can be dangerous, right? Might land funny off a trampoline. I don't like to show that picture very long because that just doesn't look very nice, that diving board incident. So But the physical trauma, the physical stress usually is something that's very apparent to us. We know it happened, right? But those three different categories are the easiest way to kind of categorize the stresses that we come in contact with. And it's just a matter of finding out what our weak areas are and how to strengthen ourselves in those areas. Right? The easiest way to remember them are thoughts, toxins, and trauma. Okay, the 3 Ts, thoughts, toxins, and trauma. Now, I'm going to go to another point where we've all been through. It's the most common time that we might injure our nervous system. Any guesses? We did actually talk about it earlier. Something every one of us is going to go through.
Posture?
Well, our posture definitely is going to be affected by this to some degree, and can ultimately have an effect on us as well. Posture is a problem. But this is even before we even thought about posture. We weren't thinking about posture when this was happening. So after we have that developmental process that goes on and all of our organs are developed and we've got, we've got arms and legs and we're ready to talk but we can't talk, we're ready to breathe but we can't breathe, we're going to be born, right?
Yeah, but then you go through the birth canal.
That's the most common time we injure our nervous system.
Yeah.
I think food, because right away you're gonna put food in there.
Well, you are, and your mom's been putting food in too, so, I mean,
Yeah.
we could say that maybe even it was prenatal, but birth is actually the most common time we can see a physical situation where we know the nervous system was injured, right? And it doesn't take us long to think about it either. So the birth canal is widest from front to back and narrowest from right to left, right? Follow me so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at the birth canal, right? Okay, so, and the baby's head is widest from front to back and narrowest from right to left, right? Okay,
Right.
so babies usually come out face down or face up. There
Yeah.
really is a reason for going through this, right?
Down.
I'm sorry?
You're supposed to be face down.
Face down is easier, because if they're face up, they're gonna run across the pubic bone, they end up with
Right.
some bruising across their
Right.
face typically. So face down is preferable, but they're gonna be face down or face up. It's just, that's the way it's gonna work, because the baby's head's not gonna come out easy the other way, right? Now, what's wider?
The
The head or the
shoulders.
shoulders? You knew the question I was gonna ask, that's awesome. The shoulders are wider, right?
Yeah.
So, is it hard to push the head out?
Yeah, but not as far as the shoulders.
Oh, okay, and the shoulders are facing the wrong direction, so what do we gotta do?
Turn.
We need to turn the baby. What's the only lever we have to turn the baby?
The side.
What's the only tool we have? Like,
Hands.
we got our hands.
Put your hand
What are we
in
gonna
it.
grab?
The head.
The head, right? Because the head's the only thing that's sticking out that we can grab, right? So we're gonna take what are we gonna do with the head?
Want forceps turn it?
Turn
We're
it.
gonna turn it. Okay, yeah. So we're gonna turn it. So we're gonna turn the head so we can get the baby's shoulders out, right?
Kid.
Okay, now I'd like to say that was a chiropractic adjustment. That was
Oh,
not a chiropractic adjustment, right? Okay, that wasn't fixing anything. Now, I'm not faulting the doctor. I'm not showing his face up here. I'm not faulting the doctor at all. He had to get the baby out, right?
Yeah.
But there are easier ways to deliver. I mean, and third world countries actually have a step up on this one because they actually squat to deliver babies. They're using gravity.
Right.
It's a novel idea, right? In our society, we lay all of our mothers down, so they have to push baby, let's go back to this picture, push baby uphill to get the baby out, right? Whereas if you're squatting,
Yeah.
you got gravity to your advantage, right? So, but it takes a lot of force to help pull that baby out and get the shoulders turned, right? And if the baby is stubborn, we're going to use some additional methods. In this case, vacuum extraction, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. They put a suction cup on the baby's head, and then you have a long hose that extends off of that, and now you have a longer lever. It's a physics equation at that point, right? Longer lever makes easier work.
Wow, wouldn't that hurt the baby?
Yes.
Yeah,
So you can sometimes see some injury on the top of the baby's head. Now, based on what we've talked about already, and I'm going to come right to what you're talking about, Helen, because I see where you're pointing.
Yeah.
Based on what we talked about already, how long is it going to take for the skin to heal on the top of the head?
3 days.
About 30, right? You remember there's a 3 in there, right? It's 30 days, about a month,
30 days.
right? That's the maximum time it's going to take for the skin to heal on the top of the baby's head. Where might there have been some other injury from that pulling and tugging
In his neck.
that we can't see?
In
We
the
can't
neck.
see it,
In the
so
neck
we don't think about it, right? Exactly, in the neck area. So the most, well, let's think about it this way. After we deliver the baby, we're going to hand the baby to mom. What is mom going to have to do with that baby? And the nurse is going to do it too. She's handing the baby, right? I'm going to hand you the baby, all right? You ready to hold the baby? Okay, what are you going to do with that baby's head?
Oh, try to hold the baby's
Gotta
head.
shift
Why are you gonna
it.
hold the baby's head up?
Or let the baby sit there.
Because
Well,
he
you know
can't
what?
hold his head up.
The baby can't hold up their own head?
Right.
You mean their muscles aren't strong enough to hold up their own head?
Mhm.
Huh. But they were strong enough to endure all that force pulling and tugging, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of injury that can happen there.
Oh,
It needs to be
man.
checked. And we're going to talk about all the injury that can happen and how significant, how common it is in just a moment. The forceps is also another method, right? Same story, okay? They might have facial marks from the forceps, the salad tongs, if you will. But the biggest thing I'm worried about is the stuff you can't see, right? In the neck. It's hiding in there. This is
Oh my
C-section.
gosh.
Oh, man.
This is C-section. I've never had that response from a C-section. That's pretty good. Okay, and actually, a C-section looks worse than this picture in in reality, because there's a lot of seesawing to get the baby through the abdominal
Right.
muscle wall.
Yeah.
It's a tough, C-section is almost more challenging than vaginal delivery.
Really?
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've heard
and
it's a
not
lot
for mom,
harder.
not for mom, although the recovery is bad for mom.
Right.
The delivery is not bad for mom, the delivery is bad for the baby.
Right.
Yeah. So they've actually done research, it was a long time ago, I wish they would redo the study in our current society. This was actually in Germany, and they published a study in 1987. Okay? They studied 1,250 babies, and they studied them all on day 5. Okay? So they examined them on day 5 after they were born, and then they recorded their findings, right? Okay, so on day 5, they found 211 suffered from vomiting, hyperactivity, and sleeplessness. Okay? Now I'm going to skip over some of this stuff. And they said that they found over 1,000 infants with nerve interference in the upper neck area. Now, how many was the study group again?
1,000.
1,250. And they found over 1,000 with nerve
That's
interference in the upper neck
80%.
area.
Awful.
Yes, it's a high percentage, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
coming back to the points that y'all made earlier, it is a good idea to get our babies checked, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
absolutely.
agree.
Just to make sure, there's 20% that's going to come out okay, but there's that other 80%, and there may be some flexibility in there. Sometimes it's worse than others maybe, but you know, it's important to get our babies checked, because if they start out with nerve interference in the upper neck area, and you know, some of them had some pretty severe stuff. So let's see. After being adjusted with the vomiting, hyperactivity, and sleeplessness, the infants became quiet, their crying stopped, the muscles relaxed, and they went to sleep, right? So those are severe stuff: vomiting, hyperactivity, sleeplessness. They can't sleep at all, they're vomiting, you know, really rough stuff, right? The baby's not sleeping. Then there's the subtle stuff that kind of goes underneath the radar, right? So the kids that just had nerve interference, they didn't have the severe vomiting or sleeplessness, they had central motor impairment, and they also had lowered resistance to infections, especially those of the ears, nose, and throat. How many children do you know that are growing up with chronic ear infections?
My
Right.
daughter, my one daughter, she falls under that, I'm sure.
So she may even have some of these things going on. A
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
colicky babies, that's usually who we see, because the colicky babies are keeping mom and dad up. And if you're keeping mom and dad up, then the whole family's in an uproar, so we gotta do something about this now. And so you're looking for answers. And so after you get done with the drugs, then you're looking for answers still, going, well, how can we fix this, because it's still not fixed? And then we usually end up seeing them. I just wish we could see all of them from the beginning, so we didn't end up with 30 years later having a low back
Yeah,
problem that
me
resulted
too.
from a misalignment at birth,
Yeah.
right?
My daughter has a lot of spine issues.
And it
And-
probably is all
And she
interconnected.
was real, they had to turn her in order for her to be delivered.
So there's a lot of twisting
Yeah,
going on,
yeah.
so, yeah, especially in those circumstances, you really like to make sure they're
Yeah.
getting checked.
Do you know that I have a 41-year-old grandson that has had ear problems all of his life? He's had 3 major surgeries, and maybe could have all resulted from something that happened.
So simple.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
And looking back on it now, so easy to correct, right? Wouldn't have known it at the time, but yeah,
Yeah.
they're very simple to correct
Totally.
now too.
Yeah.
So proper spinal alignment, where all the bones are sitting in the right position, protecting the nerves, is going to allow the nerves to function properly, which is going to give us properly functioning tissues, and going to allow us to have good health. I'm not going to say that's going to lead directly into good health, because health is a conglomeration of a lot of things, right?
Right.
This isn't the only factor,
Right.
but it's one of them, and it's an important one, right? Because if you're on good function, you're not going to have good health. Okay? If you start to mess this up, we have a subluxation causing nerve interference, we're definitely not going to get down to the health section, right? Okay. All of a sudden it changes over. Now we've got nerve interference, malfunctioning tissues. It's going to lead to dis-ease, where the body is not comfortable with itself. So you're not comfortable in your own skin, basically, right? And then we're going to end up with symptoms as a result. Now, we can treat the symptoms all day long, but if we don't get back to the root cause of the problem,
Yeah.
we're not going to get anywhere, right? Now, there's a time to treat symptoms. If your blood pressure is 250 over 160, might be a good idea to have your blood pressure artificially lowered, right? After you do that, what do you want to do? So you get it artificially lowered so you don't die in the next few minutes, right? Then what do? Figure out why it went high, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's do a little investigative work, right? Well, we want to save lives first, and after we save the life, now we want to figure out why things were going wrong, so we can get off the blood pressure medication. We don't want to be on the blood pressure medication for the rest of our lives, right? Okay. So you figure out what the problem is. Now, medical doctors are great in this trauma situation, where we've got symptoms that are life-threatening, okay? They're going to save your life, right? They're going to bring you back, okay, so that you don't end early, right? Now, God, once you go home, you're going to go home anyway, but, you know, this is a situation where medical doctors have intervened and had lots of success. Right? The problem that we have is with chronic diseases. How many chronic diseases in our society have ever been cured, quote unquote? Right? There is no cure. God is the cure, okay? God's the only one that can do any kind of healing, right? No doctor has the ability to heal.
That's
Okay?
right.
I'll never claim that I have the ability to heal. I don't do anything in this office except remove interference, and even then, You know, I'm like, well, you know, I'm just in the audience. God's doing all the healing, right? So as chiropractors, that's all we do. We remove the interference up here. So we correct subluxations. And in our office, we correct atlas and axis subluxations, the top two bones of the neck, right? You remove pressure off the brainstem, and you let the brainstem start to communicate all the right signals down through, and all of a sudden the whole body starts to adjust itself and function better. Right? Now, the way we do that, we use the advanced orthogonal technique. Now, y'all are all pretty familiar with this, so I may give you some details you didn't know before, but y'all have been through the procedure, or at least seen the procedure done, so you know at least some of what's going on. So we use sound wave to make our corrections, right? Allows us to be very specific, because we use that little thin stylus that you see is very pinpoint in accuracy, right? So we can be very specific about what we do, and so that offers a gentle and precise treatment for correction of subluxations. Now, the uniqueness of the anatomy, that's what you had the big hole in the bottom of your head before. There's the big hole, right? So that's the one. That's where all the nerve signals are going down through. The brainstem's going to travel down through. I shouldn't say all of them. There's other ones that take different pathways, but most of them, majority of them, going right down through there, right? The atlas sits just below it, and then the axis just below that, right? And the way the axis sits, it has a little thumb-like process that sticks up. The atlas rotates around it like this, right? Okay, we probably talked about that already. Now, right through the center, that's where the brainstem's going to go down through, and as long as we have good alignment, it's going to go through unscathed and unhindered, and we're going to have good communication, which is going to allow all the digestive organs, hormone balance, all that to work right. And we're also going to get good posture muscle control, right? Now, when it misaligns and we start to get pressure on the brainstem, just a little bit of torque, right? Not cutting any nerve signals off, usually actually exciting nerve signals so that muscles work when they shouldn't work, and organs start to produce things that they shouldn't produce at the times they shouldn't produce them, right? So we start ending up having function that we shouldn't have yet as a result of pressure on the nerves. And so then muscles start to twist the spine instead of hold it up straight. And organs start to produce, you know, too much of whatever, right? We can end up with all kinds of functional difficulties as a result, right? So the way we analyze that is we do an examination, which you all have all been through, basically to find out if there's imbalance and if it's coming from the brainstem. And if it is, then we're going to take three-dimensional x-rays so we can get it corrected. So we take a picture from the side, we take a picture from the front, and we take a picture from the top. And the pictures from the front and the top look like alien pictures, right? So you look at them, they look a little bit weird. And we have to take them at specific angles so we can see the bones that we need to see and the relationship that it has with the head and with the neck. And they have to be very specific. If they're not done right, we retake them, right? You all might have had some retakes, I don't remember for sure. But if it's not done perfectly square, we need to retake it so that we can accurately assess them. The only way we're going to be able to accurately assess a misalignment is by looking from all three dimensions. And once we get the right pictures, then we're going to start to analyze the bone structures. We put lines and measurements on all the bones, and then we measure how they're related to each other. And based on those measurements, we're going to come up with vectors, okay, which Georgia Tech Engineering School helped us come up with, thankfully, because I'm not a physics major. All right, so we've got the resultant vectors. We're going to take that to our correction room, where we're going to make our adjustments. So our patient's going to be laying on their side. And if we look at the inside here, there's the base of the skull resting on the headpiece, stabilized right there on that wonderfully comfortable headpiece, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not so much. Okay, so the atlas is sitting just underneath, and it's shifted up to the left, so we're going to adjust it down to the right, underneath the head, back underneath the head. Right? So you're going to bring in the instrument, we're going to program it with the information from the x-rays, line it up with the atlas effectively, and then we're going to make our correction. Right? Boom, there it goes. All right. Don't see the instrument move because there's no excursion, there's no push. It's just a sound wave that gently allows that bone to realign underneath the skull.
So just the impulse of that shifts the vertebrae.
Do you want to know the neurology?
Yeah, I'm wondering how
Okay.
that works.
So let's talk about it because it's not just that simple. It's easier to talk about that way, but the neurology behind it. Okay, since you asked, otherwise I wouldn't go into all of it. Okay, so now during a sobriety test, right? Cop pulls somebody over because they think they were driving drunk.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do some checks on them, right? Okay, so one of them is finger to nose, right? So you close your eyes, stick your finger out here, and then bring it to your nose, right? Now, how did I know where my finger was so that I could bring it and touch my nose without looking? There's nerves, again, like there is with anything else, there's nerves that tell your brain exactly how each joint is bent, okay? Based on the muscle feedback, right? Because each muscle controls the joint and moves it, right? So you have feedback coming from the joints, you have feedback coming from the muscles, telling your brain exactly where it's positioned in space. So you can know exactly where everything is without actually seeing it. Those are called proprioceptive nerves, right? So, muscle spindles are a proprioceptive type of nerve. They're in the muscle bellies themselves. The area that's most dense, okay, is up here in your neck. Okay? there's one muscle up here on either side, right? It's twice as much as the next muscle, which is right next to it and still connects to the atlas. And that one, the second one, is twice as much as the low back muscles, which is twice as much as the next ones throughout the rest of your body. So why on earth would God put so many sensors to tell your brain exactly where the upper cervical spine is? Huh, it's kind of an important area, right? Okay, so again, lends credibility to the fact that that's an important area. What we do is we use that to our advantage, right? So when we're lining up the instrument, we're not moving the bone, we're stimulating proprioceptive nerves. So your brain does the moving for you, right? Does that make sense? We're basically setting things in motion. We're not causing them to
You're
happen.
sending a signal for it to do it on its own.
Yeah, we're basically sending a sound wave in, which is an impulse that's received by those proprioceptive neurons that are most dense of anywhere in your body right there. They're receiving that info, sending it in, sending it back out, making a change, right? So your body does the changing. Your body basically does the correction. I just am as precise as I can be, so I'm giving the best information possible so your brain can give the best output possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like having a computer there and you have your little, we call it,
Little mouse?
mouse, and you just get that thing to go where you want it to go, then you hit the button, so it opens it up or closes, whatever it is, something like that.
More or less, yeah.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, so we're using the sensitivity of the nervous system to the advantage of correcting itself, more or less, right?
Mm.
So it's a lot deeper, and you can tell why I don't necessarily start out with that explanation, because it takes a little bit longer and it's a little bit more in depth. So, but if you're ready to receive it, I'm ready to give it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot simpler to just say, hey, you know what? We line that stylus up and it moves the bone with a sound wave. It's that simple, but it's not quite that simple.
And I didn't realize it was a sound wave that was doing that.
Yep, and we oftentimes call it a percussion wave, especially when we're talking to our colleagues, we call it a percussion wave. So the instrument back there, we call it the Advanced Orthogonal Percussion Adjusting Instrument.
Uh-huh.
Say that 5 times fast, right?
I think it's amazing how they came up with this.
It really is.
I
And
mean,
they-
it's amazing.
the inventor of it's Roy Sweat. He, 1980, he came up with it.
It's like advanced chiropractic care. Is that
Well,
what,
I-
to me, I mean, that's,
I can't say that, but
you
you
can't
can.
say that. Oh, okay.
You can say it all you want, I can't say that. Just because I'm a chiropractor, and if I say that, then I'm basically putting other chiropractors down.
Oh,
And not intentionally, I wouldn't do
no,
it intentionally,
no.
but
But
it is
to
good to
me,
be
that's
specific.
what it is, advanced chiropractic care. Because it's so much, because I've had so much chiropractic care in my life.
Yeah, you've been familiarized with it, you know what it's
Yeah,
like.
I know.
Yeah.
Since I was 22 years old, and I'll soon be 93, so.
And you've done very well.
Yeah.
Very excited for you on that plane. Now, with increased accuracy and specificity, we have higher expectations for our corrections. So we actually expect people to hold their adjustment. So a lot of times the familiarity with chiropractor is you go get adjusted 3 times a week for the rest of your life, right? Well, that's not the goal. The goal is to get you holding your adjustment so you don't need a correction. Because if you need a correction, that means the bone's out of place. If the bone's out of place, what does that mean about the nerve system?
It's out of place too.
It's not functioning right.
It's not
Right.
functioning as it should.
And so if it's not functioning right every time you come in, are we really making progress? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but it's going to be a lot slower, isn't it? If you can just get your body building some steady momentum, we'll actually get some, if you can keep the car in drive, don't you get a lot further than if you put it in drive and then reverse and then drive and then reverse and then drive and then reverse, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot better if we can just put it in drive and leave it there. Okay, so if we can hold our adjustment, then we'll be able to continue that healing process, right? Okay. Now, this message is not one that's widely understood or known, so that's why I love telling it. The magnificence of the human body and how everything can be disrupted by just a little subluxation in the upper neck, causing our whole life to go awry. And the simplicity is, all we have to do is just get the interference out of the way and the body can start to recover again, because it's really awesome how God made the body.
That's where it goes.
So getting that message out is important to me. So if there's organizations that you're a part of that has guest speakers come in, I'd love to speak to them. I'd love to have the opportunity to share this message with them so that they can have an understanding and be in the driver's seat of their own health care. So that's really what the key is. Insurance is not going to fix anything in our society as far as the healthcare system goes. It's just accentuating the problem because it's making the treatment of disease more readily available than it was before. And as we talked about before, is the treatment of disease getting us anywhere? No. It's the development of health that's going to get us somewhere. If we shed more health on the situation, then we're actually going to make some progress.
Have you or any other upper cervical doctors able to give a seminar or lecture at veterans hospitals anywhere?
I don't know if anybody has. Chiropractic, I think, is only covered by the VA if there's a chiropractor on staff. Typically, in the past, that's been my understanding. So like if somebody's on base at McDill, you can go see that chiropractor if you're enlisted right now. Okay, you can go see that chiropractor, but you can't go see a chiropractor out here and get coverage through the VA.
And no way in the hospital.
And in the hospitals, I'm not sure if they have chiropractors in there at all. I have not looked into that. I will say there's a chiropractor, an upper cervical doctor out in Orlando, who's at the Rosen Medical Care Center. He's actually at their hospital because they invited him in. They saw the benefit of it. They saw how much he was impacting their, I don't know if it was physicians, the management, who it was, but he had a positive impact on somebody. And so they said, you know what, we need your care in our hospital. So he actually sold his practice so he could go work in the hospital and give upper cervical care to all the folks in their hospital. So.
And it's sad that you can do so much to help people and then insurance
Well, and I'll tell you, insurance, and we can get into a long discussion about insurance, but the way insurance was designed, okay, initially, was employers can get their employees back to work quickly, right? And so to get the employee back to work quickly, do you need to get the employee well, or do you just need to get the employee feeling better so they get back to work? Just feeling better. So insurance is totally designed around getting somebody to feel better so they can go back to work. And health insurance hasn't changed. Now, the employer doesn't pay for it anymore, but health insurance hasn't changed. It's the same thing. They just want to get you from here back to work.
Yeah.
And so it's not about getting healthy, it's not about fixing you. Health is on your own.
Right. Nobody
Health,
cares.
health insurance isn't going to cover it.
Right.
And in reality, it's sick insurance. And so we just have to have the right perspective, okay? So it's going to take care of me if I break my leg, if I fall off the roof, if I become deathly ill, they'll hold me out. But if I want to stay well, no. Chronic illness, no.
You're on your own.
And you're better off on your own in those cases because the treatment, the care that insurance would pay for you is not good. Not good. So I'll leave you with this last quote from Thomas Edison many years ago. I'm not a big Thomas Edison fan, although he came up with a lot of stuff on his own. Some stuff he stole, some stuff he came up with on his own. But anyway, this is a great quote, okay? And that one is credited to him. So he did come up with that one. Doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. We're not there yet, but we keep striving towards that and continue to try to spread the message so we can get more people to think that way. Right? It's that simple. Now, I thank you all for coming. I hope you all learned something.
This was
And,
very, very, very interesting.